A bright light streaked across the night sky of the alien jungle world Zakar-7. At first, the Jarnuk scouts thought it was a meteor. It burned red and fast, then crashed deep into the forest with a booming shockwave that shook the trees. A patrol ship was sent to investigate. What they found was not a meteor. It was a human escape pod. The pod was dented, half buried in dirt, and smoke rose from its sides. The Jarnuk soldiers approached with caution. One of them scanned the hull and frowned. "Unknown Earth origin," he said. "This is human technology." The leader of the squad, Captain Rivak, gave a cold chuckle. "So, the humans have started exploring near our space. Interesting." With weapons ready, they opened the hatch. Inside, there was one man, tall, bruised, covered in cuts, and barely conscious. His suit was torn. His left arm looked broken. Blood dripped from his forehead. And yet, his eyes were open, watching them. The Jarnuk surrounded him and dragged him out of the pod. "This is the species the galaxy fears," one soldier laughed. "He looks like a weak animal." The human didn't speak. He didn't scream. He just stared. They took him to an underground research base nearby. The scientists there were eager to begin tests. "Humans are from a death world," one researcher explained. "Their biology is unique. We must learn what makes them dangerous." They strapped the human to a table, injected him with calming fluids, and began scanning his body. But the scans failed. The machines overheated. The power blinked. Lights flickered in the lab. The human didn't move, but his heart rate remained stable, calm, even while unconscious. As the researchers left for a break, only 2 guards stayed behind. The room was quiet. Then the human's eyes opened fully. In less than 30 seconds, both guards were down. One was knocked unconscious by a sudden headbutt. The other's weapon was taken and used against him. The human broke free of his restraints like they were paper. Alarms rang. Red lights flashed. The human moved like a shadow through the halls. He didn't have a map. He didn't need one. He moved based on observation, patterns, behavior. He listened to footsteps, smelled chemicals in the air, and read warning signs in an alien language as if he had learned them in hours. Guards chased him, but they were not trained for this. The human used the narrow halls to his advantage. He set traps using power cables and tools. One guard slipped and fell onto his own weapon. Another was lured into a sealed room and locked inside. The base commander shouted orders over the intercom. "Seal the lower levels. Don't let him reach the launch bays." But it was too late. The human had already disabled their systems. Surveillance feeds went black. Drones crashed. The lights went out completely. By the time they got the power back on, he was gone. A squad of 10 elites was sent into the jungle to track him. They followed broken branches, heat signatures, even scent trails. But one by one, they vanished. Some fell into camouflaged pits. Others were picked off from the trees. Their last messages were filled with panic. "He's here. He's watching us. No movement detected, but I feel something. I saw him. He's not bleeding anymore. He's healed." Their voices were cut off. Only one elite soldier made it back to the base. He had a deep cut on his leg and a haunted look in his eyes. He dropped to his knees before Commander Rivak and whispered, "He's not like us. He's something else. He learns too fast." Back at the crash site, a young scientist named Ven was studying the human's escape pod. Inside, he found a blinking signal beacon. It had been activated just before capture. A small message flashed on the screen in alien script. "Scout has landed. Threat confirmed. Requesting backup." Ven's face turned pale. "He wasn't an explorer," he said softly. "He was a scout." Commander Rivak grabbed the report and stared at the signal data. It was already sent into deep space, toward unknown coordinates. If he was a scout, then that meant others were coming. And they wouldn't be alone. The entire base fell into silence. No one laughed anymore. No one joked about the weak-looking human. They had seen what one injured scout could do. He had walked into their hands, escaped their best traps, fought their best troops. And now he had sent out a call. Panic started to grow. In a control room above the jungle, a Jarnuk officer watched old videos about Earth. Images of massive storms, deadly beasts, toxic lands, and brutal human history played on the screen. He turned to his fellow officer and said one thing. If that was just a scout, then we're already dead. The jungle was quiet, but the silence felt wrong. The air was thick and heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. Somewhere in the deep forest, the human was still moving, still surviving, still planning. Back at the Jarnuk base, panic had taken root. Commander Rivak stood in the command center, watching the red lights blink on the map. Each light represented a lost patrol. First, 2 guards, then 5, then 10. All gone, not a trace. No bodies, no gear, just empty signals that stopped in the middle of nowhere. We've lost another squad, one officer said, voice shaking. Same pattern. They split up to search, then stopped responding. Commander Rivak's fists tightened. One man did this. One injured man. Are you telling me we can't catch him? The officer didn't answer. Everyone in the room already knew the truth. This human was not fighting with brute strength. He was using the jungle, using their own tools, using their own weaknesses. He was thinking like a predator. And now, fear was spreading through the soldiers like poison. The human was seen again, briefly, by a drone. He was crouched near a waterfall, drinking water, bandaging his arm with part of a Jarnuk uniform. His face was calm, focused, not angry, just calculating. The drone tried to scan him, but he looked up and threw a piece of sharpened metal. It pierced the drone's sensor and dropped it instantly. He shouldn't be able to throw that hard, one technician whispered. He shouldn't be alive, another added. Later that night, the Jarnuk tried something new. They dropped sonic mines into the jungle, designed to confuse and trap wild creatures. The bombs exploded with sound waves that shattered glass, stunned animals, and scrambled brains. But the human didn't fall for it. Instead, he used the chaos to sneak into one of their supply outposts. By the time guards arrived, the entire armory was empty. Food, tools, weapons, all stolen. But the strangest thing was what he left behind. A message scratched into the wall in alien language. Not your jungle anymore. Commander Rivak had enough. He called for the elite night hunters, silent killers trained in deep recon and jungle survival. Send them all, he ordered. No more games. 12 hunters entered the jungle. Skilled, ruthless, cold. They had never failed a mission. But this time, they never returned. Only one helmet was recovered. It was stuck to a tree with a knife through the middle. The message carved into the helmet read, "You sent killers. I sent them back empty." The base was now under lockdown. Morale dropped fast. Soldiers whispered about the human, calling him the Shadow. Some refused to go outside the walls at night. Others spoke of a curse. But one person wasn't afraid. Young scientist Ven. He was still studying the beacon inside the human's escape pod, and what he found changed everything. It's not just a signal, he told the officers. It's a code, a call to orbit. It was programmed to auto-send if the human didn't check in within 20 hours. And it was sent. Commander Rivak asked. Ven nodded. Yes, 20 hours ago. The room went quiet. Commander Rivak stared out the window at the stars. So, someone out there knows. But Ven wasn't finished. Sir, I found something else. There was a second signal, hidden in the pod's black box. A message, not for Earth, but for other scouts. Commander Rivak turned. Other scouts. Yes, Ven said. This wasn't just one man. He was part of a larger mission. Maybe hundreds, maybe more, and we don't know how many have already landed. The meaning hit them all at once. They hadn't just captured a lone human. They had exposed themselves, and now it was too late to hide. That night, the human appeared again, but not in the jungle. He was spotted just outside the main wall, walking calmly in the open. He stood there, watching, not attacking, just watching. The guards aimed their weapons. He's here. We have a shot. But Commander Rivak gave no order to fire. He stared at the figure on the screen, heart pounding. Why isn't he running? An officer asked. Because, Rivak said quietly, he doesn't need to anymore. Then the human slowly turned and walked back into the forest. Not fleeing, not scared, just leaving a message. He had proven a point. He had shown them what one scout could do. And now, they were starting to wonder, what happens when the others arrive? The stars above Zakar 7 looked peaceful, but deep below the surface, in the command center of the Jarnuk military base, there was only tension and fear. The alien officers spoke in whispers now. No one raised their voice. No one joked. Every screen, every camera, every patrol was focused on one thing: finding the human. But the human didn't need to be found. He had already seen everything he needed. Commander Rivak stood over a large map. Red marks showed missing squads. Blue ones showed broken equipment. Yellow lights blinked at damaged sectors. This is not a war, he said. This is a hunt, and we're the prey. None of the officers argued. The human had not attacked again, not directly. But each day, something new went wrong. A fuel station exploded during refueling. Communications to nearby bases were cut off. Drones sent to scan the forest went dark after a few minutes. And then came the voice. It was quiet, broken, but clear. The human's voice was coming through their systems, hijacking their signals. It spoke in simple words, slowly in their language. You came here, and you hunted me. Now I am learning. The voice repeated again the next day, this time from a drone speaker that had been stolen and returned. The drone floated over the base walls before dropping to the ground. You wanted to know what humans are, so I'm showing you. Inside the base, many soldiers wanted to leave. They asked to transfer. Some even tried to escape. But Commander Rivak blocked all outgoing ships. If we run now, he said, the other scouts will see us as weak. Sir, Ven said nervously, maybe we already are. Ven had been studying the human stolen gear. The tools, the design, the materials, it was all made for survival, not comfort. Everything had a purpose. Even the fabric of the uniform was resistant to fire, water, and acid. This wasn't made for travel, Ven said. It was made for war. Rivak stared at the armor. So why send only one man? Ven's answer was soft. Because one was enough. To test us. The next night, something new appeared in the jungle. Fires. Dozens of small campfires burned in different areas. It looked like an army had arrived. Scouts were sent to check, but found nothing. Just empty fires, and the word watching carved into trees and rocks. It wasn't just a warning. It was a game. The human was showing them that he could be anywhere, that they were never safe, not even in their own territory. Commander Rivak made a decision. He called for reinforcements from the outer colonies. We will flood the forest with troops, he said. We will find him and end this before the other humans arrive. But when the reinforcements entered orbit, something went wrong. The ships reported strange energy spikes. Their sensors picked up strange signals. Then, one by one, the ships vanished from radar. No explosions, no cries for help, just silence. What's happening out there? Rivak shouted. A quiet officer looked up from her console. Sir, it's not just the scout anymore. Far above the planet, in the black of space, ships were arriving. Stealth ships, human ships, big and quiet and deadly. They didn't show on normal scanners. They didn't broadcast, but they were there. The first sign came when the skies over Zekar 7 flashed. A pulse wave knocked out all long-range comms. The base lost contact with orbit. The stars above disappeared behind clouds, thick, unnatural clouds. Inside the command center, the officers looked at each other. Nobody spoke. Even Commander Rivak's voice was low. "How many are coming?" he asked. Ven looked at the decoded scout message again. "We don't know," he whispered. But the message said one word, again and again. What word? Observe. That word chilled them more than any attack. It meant the humans were watching, measuring, calculating, planning. And the scout, the one man they captured, had simply been their eyes. Now the aliens understood. They had shown their tactics, their weapons, and their weaknesses to the one being built to remember it all. A camera feed blinked. It showed a new scene, a small tower just outside the wall. A Jarnuk flag flew there, but now it was on fire. And above it, hung by vines, was a piece of human cloth. The scout's torn uniform. There was a new message burned into the stone near the base. "You saw the scout. Now, see the storm." The next morning on Zakar 7 was unnaturally quiet. Smoke from the burned jungle still hung in the air. The sky was darker now, even though the sun had risen. There was a feeling that something had changed, that a line had been crossed. Inside the Jarnuk command center, Commander Rivak sat still, staring at the human datapad. His officers moved quietly around him. No one dared speak unless necessary. The entire base had seen the white beam from the human ship. It was not an attack. It was a message. "We can destroy you anytime we want." Rivak finally spoke. "Send a message to Central Command. Tell them the humans are not using force yet, but they've shown power far beyond our expectations." Ven looked up. "Should we request reinforcements?" Rivak shook his head. "Reinforcements won't matter. We're not dealing with brutes. We're dealing with something worse." "Worse?" Ven asked. "Yes," Rivak said. "A species that learns fast, hides well, and never forgets." The scout had vanished again. His last act had been to drop that pad filled with the Jarnuk Empire's most sensitive information. The humans hadn't attacked the base. They had exposed it. Every base, every ship, every planet in the Jarnuk control network was now vulnerable. And then the next shock came. A Jarnuk ship arrived from the nearby planet Tarvek. It landed rough, scared, damaged, and nearly out of power. The captain, barely standing, rushed into the command room. "We lost Tarvek," he gasped. Everyone turned. "What do you mean, lost?" Rivak asked. "I mean it's gone. Not destroyed, but emptied. No humans, no explosions, just nothing. Our cities are intact. Our systems are dead. All communication towers are gone, but there's no life. It's like they removed everything and left the shell." A cold silence spread through the room. Ven stepped forward slowly. "They're testing different ways to win," he said. "On our base, they watched. On Tarvek, they'd erased." Commander Rivak looked up at the dark clouds again. "They're showing us what they can do, not what they will do. That's the message." Suddenly, another alert came in. A distant mining colony had gone completely silent. No distress calls, no survivors, just a final transmission, a voice message that repeated one sentence. One was a scout. "We are the memory." Rivak slammed his hand on the table. "This is war. A quiet war. We didn't even know it started." Ven spoke again. "Sir, maybe this isn't war." "Not yet." "What do you mean?" "I mean, they're still giving us chances. They haven't destroyed this base. They gave us the datapad. They want us to understand something." "Understand what?" "That we don't have the power anymore." Later that night, a strange event took place. A small human pod landed just outside the Jarnuk base. No weapons, no escort, just one object inside. A hologram. The hologram activated on its own and showed a scene, one the Jarnuks had never seen before. It was Earth, the human homeworld, but not in war, not burning. It showed humans walking through cities, laughing, building, working together. It showed their young learning in schools, their elderly resting in gardens, their engineers building ships, not for battle, but for knowledge. Then the scene changed. It showed human military training camps, soldiers running, flying, firing. It showed drills, space combat, intelligence briefings. And then came the voice. This is who we are. We create peace, but we prepare for war. The final image was of the scout, still masked, still silent, but this time standing beside others just like him. And one by one, those other humans faded into the shadows. Hundreds, maybe thousands. The message ended with one sentence. He was never alone. Inside the command room, the officers looked to Commander Rivak. He stood still, fists clenched, mind racing. "We made a mistake," he finally said. "Sir," Ven asked. "We assumed they were primitive, that because they were new to the galactic stage, they were weak." "They aren't weak," Ven said. "They're patient." And just then, a final signal came from the scout, still out in the jungle. A message broadcasted to all of Zekar 7, translated in perfect Jarnuk language. "One world is already lost. Do not lose another." The jungle around the Jarnuk base was silent again. Too silent. No animals. No wind. Just still air and thick tension. The ground felt heavier with each passing hour. Something unseen was moving across the planet. Slowly, quietly, but with purpose. Commander Rivak stood before the large digital map in the control room. Red marks blinked everywhere. Tarvek, lost. Mining Colony 9, vanished. Listening Station 14, silent. And now, even Patrol Ship Delta 3 had stopped transmitting. "We're being cut off, piece by piece," he said in a low voice. Officer Ven nodded. "They're not fighting us directly. They're removing us from the inside. But why not just attack?" Rivak demanded. "They clearly have the power." "Because this is their warning," Ven said. "They're not trying to destroy us. They want us to see what they can do. They're giving us a chance to surrender, without war." The other officers looked at each other nervously. One of them, young and unsure, spoke up. "But why? Why spare us?" Ven answered, "Because they don't want to rule. They want to be left alone. But if we force them, they'll erase us." Just then, the scout's signal activated again. Everyone turned as the screen lit up. The scout's masked face appeared, backlit by jungle flames. His voice was calm. Too calm. "You had your chance to study us," he said. "You chose arrogance." The image changed to footage, raw and real. It showed the moment his ship crashed, then the moment he was captured, then scenes from inside the base, taken from the Jarnuk's own security cameras. "They let him access our systems," a technician whispered in fear. The video kept playing. The scout had clearly learned everything. He had walked through their science labs, their barracks, their drone controls, and the whole time, they thought he was just a weak prisoner. Now they knew the truth. "He recorded everything," Rivak said, his voice low. "And he sent it to them." The video ended with one final clip. A Jarnuk soldier beating the scout when he refused to answer questions. The room fell silent. No one looked at each other. Even after that, Ven said quietly, "They didn't kill us. They're warning us." Suddenly, the base lights flickered, then died. Emergency lights switched on. Red glows lit the halls. "Power systems down." Someone shouted, "All backup lines have been severed. Launch the drones." Rivak ordered. "No response, sir," said another officer. They've taken remote control. Outside, the jungle glowed with tiny blue lights, moving slowly in a perfect circle around the base. "What is that?" a soldier asked, trembling. Then zoomed in on the cameras. Beacons, human ones. They're setting something up. Then came the hum again. The same sound from the night the orbiting ship fired into the forest. It grew louder, deeper, like the planet itself was waking up. In the sky, 3 human ships slowly descended. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. They just hovered like dark shadows of judgment. Rivak stepped onto the viewing platform, looking up. One ship opened its lower hatch. From it, dozens of small spheres dropped, each one landing gently around the base. They didn't explode. Instead, they projected holograms of humans, scientists, soldiers, families, all speaking the same line in different languages. "We warned you. He was just a scout." Then the human commander appeared. Not the scout this time. A new face. Tall, calm, focused. "This is your last message," she said. "You have 2 options. Leave this planet and never return, or remain and be erased." Rivak stared at her. "You wouldn't dare," he whispered. But the screen stayed on her face. "We did not come here for war," she said. "We came to protect our own. He survived because we trained him. We waited to see what you'd do. Now, we've seen enough." The screen went dark. Then came the countdown. 10, 9, 8. "Wait," Rivak shouted. "Send a response." "No channels are open," Ven replied. "They've cut communication." 7, 6, 5. Outside, the scout stood at the tree line, watching. Still silent, still calm. 4, 3, 2. Rivak closed his eyes. And then, nothing. The countdown stopped at 1. A new message appeared. "You made the right choice. Remember this moment." All power returned to the base. The ships in the sky pulled back. The scout turned and vanished into the jungle. They had been tested, watched, judged, and spared, but not forgiven. Rivak turned to his officers. "We leave Zakhar-7 tonight. We never return, and we never, ever underestimate the humans again." The jungle around the Jarnuk base was silent again. Too silent. No animals. No wind. Just still air and thick tension. The ground felt heavier with each passing hour. Something unseen was moving across the planet. Slowly, quietly, but with purpose. Commander Rivak stood before the large digital map in the control room. Red marks blinked everywhere. Tarvek, lost. Mining Colony 9, vanished. Listening Station 14, silent. And now, even Patrol Ship Delta 3 had stopped transmitting. "We're being cut off, piece by piece," he said in a low voice. Officer Ven nodded. "They're not fighting us directly. They're removing us from the inside. But why not just attack?" Rivak demanded. "They clearly have the power." "Because this is their warning," Ven said. "They're not trying to destroy us. They want us to see what they can do. They're giving us a chance to surrender, without war." The other officers looked at each other nervously. One of them, young and unsure, spoke up. "But why? Why spare us?" Ven answered, "Because they don't want to rule. They want to be left alone. But if we force them, they'll erase us." Just then, the scout's signal activated again. Everyone turned as the screen lit up. The scout's masked face appeared, backlit by jumble flames. His voice was calm. Too calm. "You had your chance to study us," he said. "You chose arrogance." The image changed to footage, raw and real. It showed the moment his ship crashed, then the moment he was captured, then scenes from inside the base, taken from the Jarnuk's own security cameras. "They let him access our systems," a technician whispered in fear. The video kept playing. The scout had clearly learned everything. He had walked through their science labs. their barracks, their drone controls. And the whole time, they thought he was just a weak prisoner. Now they knew the truth. He recorded everything, Rivak said, his voice low. And he sent it to them. The video ended with one final clip. A Jarnok soldier beating the scout when he refused to answer questions. The room fell silent. No one looked at each other. Even after that, Ven said quietly, "They didn't kill us. They're warning us." Suddenly, the base lights flickered, then died. Emergency lights switched on. Red glows lit the halls. Power systems down. Someone shouted, "All backup lines have been severed. Launch the drones," Rivak ordered. "No response, sir," said another officer. "They've taken remote control." Outside, the jungle glowed with tiny blue lights, moving slowly in a perfect circle around the base. "What is that?" a soldier asked, trembling. Then zoomed in on the cameras. Beacons, human ones. They're setting something up. Then came the hum again. The same sound from the night the orbiting ship fired into the forest. It grew louder, deeper, like the planet itself was waking up. In the sky, 3 human ships slowly descended. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. They just hovered, like dark shadows of judgment. Rivak stepped onto the viewing platform, looking up. One ship opened its lower hatch. From it, dozens of small spheres dropped, each one landing gently around the base. They didn't explode. Instead, they projected holograms of humans, scientists, soldiers, families, all speaking the same line in different languages. "We warned you. He was just a scout." Then the human commander appeared. Not the scout this time. A new face. Tall, calm, focused. "This is your last message," she said. "You have 2 options. Leave this planet and never return, or remain and be erased." Rivak stared at her. "You wouldn't dare," he whispered. But the screen stayed on her face. "We did not come here for war," she said. "We came to protect our own. He survived because we trained him. We waited to see what you'd do. Now, we've seen enough." The screen went dark. Then came the countdown. 10, 9, 8. "Wait," Rivak shouted. "Send a response." "No channels are open," Ven replied. "They've cut communication." 7, 6, 5. Outside, the scout stood at the tree line, watching. Still silent, still calm. 4, 3, 2. Rivak closed his eyes. And then, nothing. The countdown stopped at 1. A new message appeared. "You made the right choice. Remember this moment." All power returned to the base. The ships in the sky pulled back. The scout turned and vanished into the jungle. They had been tested, watched, judged, and spared, but not forgiven. Rivak turned to his officers. "We leave Zakar 7 tonight. We never return. And we never, ever, underestimate the humans again." 3 days had passed since the human ships disappeared from the skies of Zakar 7. The jungle was quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. It was not peaceful. It was tense, as if the land itself remembered everything. Every Jarnok soldier walked carefully, speaking only when needed. Their pride was gone, replaced by fear and respect. Inside the command center, Commander Rivak sat in his quarters, reviewing the last transmissions. The human warning still echoed in his ears. He was just a scout. It wasn't just a message. It was a lesson. A cold, clear truth. They had thought humans were weak, but they were wrong. Dead wrong. The scout had vanished. Not captured. Not killed. He had left. On his own terms. Ven entered the room quietly. "Sir, the last ship is ready for departure." Rivak nodded. "What about the beacon?" "It's still active," Ven said. "The humans left it in the jungle. Still transmitting 1 word every hour." Rivak didn't ask what the word was. He already knew. "Watched." He stood and walked slowly to the observation window. The trees moved in the breeze, but they no longer looked like ordinary trees. Not after everything they'd seen. Not after everything that had happened. "They want us to feel this," he said softly. "To remember this." Ven looked troubled. What if this wasn't just a message to us? Ravak turned. "What do you mean? What if the humans let this happen so the rest of the galaxy would see it too? What if they wanted every empire, every leader, every military to understand, without starting a war?" Ravak thought for a moment. Then he whispered, "A warning, disguised as mercy." Outside, the Jarnuk ships slowly lifted from the ground. Base personnel loaded the last of their gear. They didn't leave behind a victory. They left behind a scar. Just as the last ship took off, a final drone flew overhead. It dropped a metal cube near the edge of the jungle, small, silent, and glowing. The cube opened. A hologram appeared. This time, it wasn't a threat. It was a record. It showed the scout's journey, his crash, his capture, his survival, every moment carefully edited and marked. And then came footage never seen before, recorded from his point of view. It showed how he had moved through their systems, how he learned their language, how he memorized their structure, and how he waited. But the final scene was what truly shocked them. It was a recording of Earth, not of war, but of humans working together with other species. Not enemies, allies. Humans helping rebuild war-torn planets, feeding the hungry, defending the weak. The message was clear. We are capable of great violence, but we choose peace. And then the last line, until you choose war. The hologram vanished. The cube closed. The jungle went quiet again. Years later, stories of Zakar 7 spread across the galaxy. Other alien races heard whispers. At the humans spared a powerful empire. At a single scout nearly toppled a military base. At the Jarnuk were never the same after what they saw. Some didn't believe it. Others laughed. But a few listened. And those who listened stayed far away from Earth. On a distant moon, a young alien cadet once asked his commander, "Is it true? Did one human really do all that?" The old commander stared at him and said, "Yes." But he wasn't alone. He was just the first shadow, the one that warned us. The next ones won't give a warning. The cadet went quiet. Far from all of them, deep in the darkness of space, the human scout sat aboard a small ship, silent, focused, watching a new planet through his visor. He pressed a button and recorded a message. "Mission complete. No threat remains. Observation continues." Then he leaned back in his seat. A second voice replied in his earpiece, "Copy that. You were seen." He smiled slightly. That was the point.